All right. Uh, Once again, good afternoon. My name is Rohit Pande. I represent Copperleaf Technologies in India. Uh, we've got about 15 minutes, I think. So what I'm going to do is, in these 15 minutes, I'll take you through a little bit about what we do, the company, the kind of problems that we address, and I'll wrap it up with 1 to 2 customer references. And these customer references are going to be in the same industry as I think some of you. So we are a Vancouver, Canada-based headquartered organization, and we are present across the globe. We have decision analytics solutions for enterprises that manage large and complex asset base, right? It helps them in essentially deciding when and where to invest in their business to maximize capital efficiency, proactively manage the risk, and all this while ensuring that your key performance indicators, your service metrics, and so on, are met. So ours is a decision analytics solution. We've seen a pretty strong growth, thanks to our clients. We've seen like a 50% growth year on year over the last 10 years. So this essentially gives you a bit of preview of our client base. Now, you would notice that most of them are in the utility space. Some are in the electric utility, power utility, gas, and water. So we work with these clients extensively, and all of them, literally all of them, have similar problems, which is really how do you go around allocating funds while taking decisions within your company. Overall, through our customers, our solution manages about $2.7 trillion of assets worldwide. And of course, we've added on to this list over the last few months as well. Since this is a gas conclave, I just thought it appropriate to take out some of our gas utility clients. These are the ones that we work with, specifically in the gas industry, which may be a little closer to what some of you do. Now, in addition to this, of course, we continue to add on more clients, and we work a lot with even industry bodies in ensuring that we incorporate their standards into our solution. A little more about that as we go along. A bit about some of the awards. Again, I'm not going to go too much into this, but having said that, we've won a number of awards for Best Managed Company, Financial, and so on. But the 2 awards that I really want to talk about are the awards that we received last year from the Institute of Gas Engineers and Managers and the Energy and Utility Alliance. I think both are UK bodies, and I'm sure some of you would be aware of them. The first was the Product of the Year for the gas industry, and we received this award because our product helps support the norms and the NARM standards of Ofgem, which is a UK energy regulator. We got this along with Northern Gas, National Gas Grid Transmission, and SGN. We got this award along with them. The second was for implementing an asset investment management system at National Gas Grid Transmission. We implemented this, and this basically led to a 4% improvement in capital efficiency for NGGT. Which really equates to about 11 million pounds a year for them. So I wanted to just highlight this, obviously, because we're sitting in this forum, which is a little more focused on gas, on the gas industry. Moving on, what's the problem that we address? So these are some of the common problems. We've heard about a lot of problems from our eminent speakers in the first half today. I mean, those and many more. But things like assets, aging assets, the workforce that's retiring. We have this whole transition, and I know some of you don't like the word transition, but we have this whole transition from fossil to renewables. You have different metrics around decarbonization, greenhouse gas emissions. We have our own SDGs by our government. So all of this essentially is leading to a point where the decision making about where to invest is getting extremely complex because all of these factors need to be considered. And probably what was being done earlier on a spreadsheet is absolutely impossible right now. So just let me just illustrate this through through an example. Assuming we have two projects. There's a project A and a, let me just state this out, project B. One is for replacing an asset. The second is for installing a new IT system, right? So the second one, project B, costs $2.5 million more than project A. You know, it takes 1.5 years longer to finish. You have some numbers about project execution risk. Let's get to the value and benefits. There's a higher OPEX savings in project B, but of course it's more expensive. Because project A is replacement of an asset, it leads to a 7% reduction in probability of failure. The second one is more about an IT, so obviously it reduces the network outage time. Now, if you were to pick up one project between this, how would you take that decision? Outside of intuition, how would you take this decision, which is a little more data-driven? It's already a little tricky, right? I mean, so just assume if two projects, it gets a little tricky about how you would decide which project to go in for. In most of your companies, you have a lot of projects. You have multiple projects every year where you need to take such decisions, where you're trying to compare apples to oranges and you're trying to, see which one makes most sense or which one adds more value to your organization, right? This gets me to the point of what exactly is value. And I think here it really depends on who you ask, because you go and ask someone as a compliance head, he'll probably talk about risk mitigation. You ask CXO, CEO, they'll obviously talk about shareholder, which could possibly mean your financial metrics. O&M head would probably talk about how long he can get the asset to work, asset sustainment, finance and accounts, OPEX reductions, and so on. But you get the gist, right? It depends on who you ask. Each one has a different definition of value, but all of them are right. And all of them need to be considered in some way when you're taking investment decisions, because all of them, in one way or the other, lead up to your strategic objectives. So the question is, how do you get everything down on a common economic scale? How do you get that apples to oranges down on a common economic scale where you can say, this one provides a lot more value than this one. Project A provides more value or project B provides more value. So this is where our company comes in. We have what is known as a Copperleaf value framework, and we do exactly that. We help bring all your investments and projects down to a common economic scale so you can then evaluate which one gives more value than the other. So take, for example, and I'm sorry about the thing if you can't read it, what you have on the top is essentially some of your strategic objectives. Now, you could have more. I've just picked up a list of 5. And I think a lot of companies here will probably have the same, right? Reliable service, affordable service, safety, environmental protection, and so on, right? Below them, we have a couple of measures which kind of add to that strategic objective. So we have specific value models that are built that provide an input to these measures. For example, if you're able to read, one of the measures is the gas reliability risk. So we've got a measure. We built a model for the gas reliability distribution risk, which basically measures the value to the organization if you were to take an activity of improving your gas system, thereby reducing your service interruption to your customers. Or taking one other example from this, we've got multiple models, but I'll just take one more before we move on. We have what is referred to as a pipeline external asset model. So in this case, what we've done is we take the probability and consequence of failure from about 8 different threat types from the US Department of Transportation's PHMSA, which is the Pipeline Hazardous Material Safety Administration. And that provides inputs to these measures that you see, a number of them. It provides inputs to things like environmental risk, safety risk, financial risk, and so on. So in a nutshell, what we're trying to do is we are trying to ensure that whatever investments you're making, we are measuring those investments in terms of these, of course, measures, number one, and therefore how it adds value to your strategic objectives, right? Now, I just want to stop for a minute here and say that, look, it doesn't mean that all the strategic objectives are going to be the same, right? Every company has different strategic objectives. So obviously we work with the companies to ensure we build the model based on the company's requirements. All right, so this just gives you an indication of the kind of models I was talking about. So as you can see, these are some of the models we have, specifically for gas transmission and distribution. We also have others for things like electrical generation, oil and gas downstream, oil and gas common, and so on. So all these models have been built over the years and our discussions with a number of our clients. So in summary, what I want to say is, you take any company, they typically have candidate investments. And when I say candidate investments, I'm talking about the investments that could be to sustain your existing assets. It could be refurbishing of assets, it could be replacing of assets, it could be servicing your assets. All of them need some type of investments. Or you could have some new projects. New projects could be anything. It could be, I just took an example of a new IT system. It could be setting up a new IoT system and so on. So what we do is, we bring all of them together through our value framework. Seems to be going off and on, please. What we do is, we bring everything down to a common economic scale, and this is what I was talking about. You have asset sustainment strategies, you have investments, you have proposals, then you have the new expansion, anything which helps you grow your revenue. You get it all down on a common economic scale. Then we run an optimization engine. Optimize for different types of constraints, right? Resource constraints, your time constraints, funding constraints. I mean, there's so many times that we hear that suddenly the organization comes back and says, a 10% budget cut. What do? Do you go and take a 10% cut across all the projects that are running? Well, that's wrong, because clearly there are some that are giving a lot more value than others. So the ones that are giving more value should not see so much of a budget cut. So we run those kind of constraints and come out with what is referred to an asset investment plan. This is the plan on what you should prioritize immediately, because it offers you the highest value for your organization. Now, obviously in this, we also, and these are typically anywhere from 3 to 5 years, so 1 to 3 years or 1 to 5 years. What we obviously want to do is, plans change. So we want to bring the real-time element in so that you can run this literally on every quarter or every year basis and re-optimize, because projects get delayed, projects overrun their budgets and so on. So you need to re-optimize that and come out with new asset investment plans. So that's what you do. Now, that's one part of the equation. Again, most of you sitting in the audience don't just deal with assets that are 1 to 5 years. You deal with assets, I think I heard someone in the first half talk about assets which are much longer. What do you do? How do you, the point is, you need to go and figure out what your asset needs are over a period of 1 to 50 years. That's where our predict engine comes in, because what we start then doing is modeling out the asset and asset risk so that you are able to determine the acceptable amount of risk your organization is able to take for a combination of all your assets, and not just one asset. Obviously, that again has a tie back to the optimize engine. Now, what I've just described here essentially is a best-in-class, best practice for the asset investment strategy, and is being followed by a number of companies. Right, I see the timer is going, so I'm going to quickly talk about 2 examples. The first is Fortis. Maybe some of you are aware, but this is again a gas distribution company in Canada. I won't go through the metrics. You can read it there. But again, they had the same problem, right? I mean, they were working on, the entire planning was being done in a siloed way, right? I mean, you have a departmental way of planning. You assign certain budgets, and then those people go and assign budgets. All of it was on intuition. They didn't have any single window to determine how to plan for the entire organization, right? And obviously, they needed visibility into their spend because it was so departmentalized. They obviously didn't get a very accurate view of the spend across the enterprise for these projects. Actually, not just for new projects, but for the existing assets as well. So we helped them, obviously set up a value framework for them. which resulted in a 17% decrease in the budget with the same value. And again, when I say value here, I'm not using it in the general sense all of us would. I'm talking about a data-driven value. It's a number, it's a numerical number, because we've used the value framework to get all our investments down to a number. It's not being just used in the semantic way. Okay, the second one I'm going to talk about before I wrap up is National Grid. I'm sure a lot of you are aware. They have assets both in UK and US. I spoke about the UK gas one a bit earlier, which was, it resulted in a savings of about 11 million pounds a year. But you see some of the other numbers. I mean, they've had tremendous amount of savings by going in for our solutions. So these were the two examples I wanted to highlight. Apart from that, and I think I'm also out of time, I've just put my email ID and our website. We've got tons of information on our website. But if any of you have any questions or want more information, please drop in a mail and I'll sure someone gets back to you. So thank you so much for listening in.